right, welcome back to Fight Talk, where we talk combat sports. My name is Austin Holman, and it is fight week, and it is a big one. Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol will face off this weekend, but it doesn't end there. Many are dubbing this the greatest boxing card of all time, which is high praise, especially based off of what we've seen in the last year. We've seen some incredible cards. Maybe those were some of the best cards we've ever seen of all time. We're in a totally different age in boxing. And that was what the UFC said when the UFC started. They said, we're going to do this better than boxing. Boxing has one great fight, and when these take place in Vegas, people are just showing up for the big fight. People don't know the people on the undercard. They don't care about them. They don't even know who's on the co-main event. And so the UFC did this totally different. They said, we're going to stack our pay-per-views. Now, we could argue, are they going in the opposite direction right now? They could easily be. But they said, we're going to make our fight nights for those less important fights. And we're going to take our biggest fights we have and put them on the pay-per-view. So people better show up at 5 o'clock when the event starts, because it's going to be amazing all the way through. People are going to know the fighters all the way through. And for the most part, from the UFC, that's what we've seen. And boxing now, obviously, with the Saudis, have this new opportunity to fill up these cards with really good fighters, where you've got a guy like Shakur Stevenson, and we'll talk about Floyd Schofield. Obviously, he's out of the fight now, but Floyd Schofield, his team said it. He took this fight because of one reason, the money. They didn't previously have the money to pay a guy like Floyd Schofield to take a really tough fight this early in his career and to fight a guy like Shakur Stevenson and to be like the third or fourth fight down. It wouldn't have made any sense for a guy like Floyd Schofield. Now it does. Why? Because the Saudis have the money to do it, and they can really do whatever they want. I mean, this is just the beginning. We might be calling this the best fight card ever, but not for long. In fact, it'll probably be broken within the next year. And it's probably beating a fight card that we've seen in the past year. That's how bleak things were for boxing cards. They were so bad from the bottom to the co-main event. And what the Saudis have done, they forced the hand of other promoters. We saw it with DAZN. How about Gervonta Davis on the main event last, early summer? And then a fantastic co-main event with David Benavidez. We've never seen stuff like that before. So we're entering a totally different age where Callum Smith, Zhilei Zhang, Virgil Ortiz, Israel Madrimov, Shakur Stevenson, Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker, Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol, they're all fighting on the same card. It used to be we wouldn't have seen all of those guys fight. All those guys a couple years ago would have all headlined their own event. They wouldn't have all fought. None of them would have fought on the same card. None of them. Zhilei Zhang would have got his main event. Callum Smith would have got his main event. And honestly, if it was up to these guys, they'd probably still have it that way. But with the money the Saudis are throwing around, you guys know this, we have a totally different ball game now, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let's start with Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. We know how this fight went last time. It was controversial. I had Bivol on the cards. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a robbery, because there's too much robbery calls in the sport where people are calling for robberies. It wasn't a robbery. A robbery is when a guy clearly wins a fight and they give it to the other guy. This was a very close fight. I was extremely unimpressed with certain scorecards. There was one scorecard that was 116-112. I still have no idea how you could get that in that fight, but it wasn't a robbery. It was a very close fight. I can see how you would give it to Beterbiev. I give it to Bivol. I felt most people gave it to Bivol. But here's the thing, and I think there's actually something to this. Just about everyone I know that watched it on TV gave it to Bivol. 2 of the judges, and then the one gave it a draw in the arena, sitting ringside, gave it to Beterbiev. Now, that's not nothing. And I think it's important to understand, why might that be? Let's look at Beterbiev's power. Sometimes we can't fully grasp the shots Beterbiev is hitting Bivol with, or other guys, David Benavidez, some of these guys, we can't grasp how hard some of those shots. the guys that are ringside have a totally different view. They can hear the crowd, right? They can hear these punches. They can see closer how Bivol's reacting. They can see those things. So if it's a case where that's what they saw and it was because they were closer, totally understand. Boxing has judging issues. I don't think this fight was the one that we need to get caught up on. It was a fantastic fight. A really, really good fighter won the fight. And one guy lost to 0. So here's what I'll tell you about this fight. If somebody's telling you they know who's going to win this Saturday, don't listen to them because they're wrong. Because this is the this is the biggest guarantee we have in boxing at this point to a really, really good fight. A really, really close fight. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, we saw like the Fury Usyk thing. Very close fight first time. Fairly close fight second time. I think Usyk's a better boxer. He won both times. I think you guys would agree. I think we have a pretty general consensus of that now. Beterbiev and Bivol just doesn't feel that way. And the way they fight their rounds are different. There's 2 types of close fights, and I want you to understand this. This is really important. There's close rounds where every single round is close, and then at the end you get a scorecard. In those cases, sometimes can look really far apart. Sometimes it's like 10-2, and it was like, what? Every round was close. But at the end of the day, the judges, one guy had a slight advantage in every single round. But it was still a very close fight. And the scorecards wouldn't tell you that, but if you watch the fight, you would understand it. The second type of a close fight is what Beterbiev and Bivol fought the first time and are likely to fight again. Bivol won the first 3 rounds. Beterbiev won the next 4. I think Bivol won the next 2 or 3, and then Beterbiev won the last couple on, I think, 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards. The 12th round was close. The 11th and 10th were fairly close. The rest of the fight, it was very clear who won each round. Bivol clearly won the first 3. Beterbiev clearly won the next 4. Okay, so it was a close fight on the scorecards, but rounds were dominated. Bivol came out hot. Beterbiev responded. And so that's a completely different type of close fight. And when you get that type of close fight, where guys, feel it for a couple rounds, step back for a couple rounds, maybe give a round away, catch their breath, that's where we can almost guarantee this is going to be a close fight. We can just as good guarantee it based on that. I'm talking about the scorecards. And so if you love controversy, you're probably in for some more controversy this weekend. I mean, that's just how it's going to be. This fight is going to be extremely close. We're going to see controversy. It's going to be a close scorecard. In my opinion, the one thing I can tell you, I think you'd have to be absolutely crazy to take Beterbiev by KO. And you'd have to be even crazier to take Bivol by KO. But I don't see a scenario where Beterbiev is able to finish Bivol. It would be a shocker, and it would be enough to have that conversation where it's like, okay, this is now a clear 4-man race for pound instead of 3. It would put Beterbiev in the camp with the top 3 guys, with Inoue, with Crawford, with Usyk. And like there would be an argument for him to go number 1 on the pound for pound if he were to knock out Dimitri Bivol. It's not going to happen. If it were to happen, you could argue him going number 1. Listen, I'm just going to make my case again. I think Bivol won the fight. If you don't believe me, go back and watch it and score it yourself. Listen, it was a close fight. I think Bivol and Beterbiev too. They're truly are high class guys. Let's just get that out of the way. The way they both handled that fight, the way Beterbiev, won, the way Bivol lost. I mean, just not much trash talk. None of that. They bypass all of that. They're doing it again this week. These guys just love the sport. And they are low drama. They're low chaos, which is the exact opposite of what we see most of the time in this sport. And that's refreshing. I don't know if that's refreshing for you guys. It's refreshing for me. The chaos is good. I love Haney. I love Haney Garcia, right? I love those kind of things. But there's a clear difference, I'll tell you, in the way that Tyson Fury loses and Dimitri Bivol loses. I'll let you figure out the rest. I enjoy the way Dimitri Bivol loses. I think it's just high class. I think he's a good guy. Um, and I'm pretty certain we'll see that again this Saturday night, regardless of who takes the loss. Um, so, wanted to point that out. But Beterbiev's corner going into the final round, and he claimed, they tell him this every time, but his corner said you need a KO. Now, if your corner tells you need a KO, you're probably down in the rounds, or at least your corner thinks you're down in the rounds. I agreed with their corner. I thought he needed a KO. It was a very close 12th round. I think every judge gave it to him. I think I gave it to Bivol, and so, it was close. I think that was one where it was each guy dominated for like half the round. So again, each fighter just had moments in that first fight. There was very little clashing where both guys are going after it. Even within rounds, we would see Bivol dominate for a minute, then Beterbiev for a minute, and then Bivol again. So incredible resiliency. I thought I picked Bivol in the first one. By the time the fight started, I thought Beterbiev was going to win. And then Bivol won the first 3 rounds. I felt good. And then Beterbiev turned it around. And it felt like another one of those fights where Beterbiev was going to win 4 through 12. He just waited a little bit, found his groove. And for Bivol to lose 4 straight rounds and then return fire and have the stamina left for that was the whole question. It wasn't Beterbiev. The question was, when's Bivol going to gas out? And he never did. It was incredible. So, again, I had him down 2 rounds going into the last round. Most people did. Beterbiev won the fight. Beterbiev is the unified champ now. So it's going to be a great fight. Again, someone tells you they know what's going to happen, they're lying to you. Just remember that. Quick odds on that one, Beterbiev minus 135, Bivol plus 105. I understand it. My biggest pet peeve in these fights is when a guy like Beterbiev wins and we act like he's better than Bivol in a really close fight like that. Nothing bothers me more in boxing than when that happens. And I will say, I think that fight, is only on October 12th. It's pretty fresh in people's minds yet. I think people are well aware that we're gonna get the same fight, and it's just really probably just gonna come down to the judges. So I obviously Beterbiev's going to be the favorite coming into the fight, not by much, but I respect that as a sport we haven't acted as if Beterbiev is miles and miles ahead of Dimitri Bivol, because that's just simply not the case. So minus 135 for Beterbiev, plus 105 for Dimitri Bivol. In that fight, I'm doing it. I'm picking Bivol. He's going to get his revenge. I can't say, obviously I'm not overly confident, but I'm giving it about 55-60% chance. And I think, there's not much more of a reason besides the fact that he's hungry. He knows he deserves this. He knows he can beat Artur Beterbiev, and he knows Artur Beterbiev's getting older. Every single day, he's above 40. So, Beterbiev's getting older. Bivol understands that. Again, stylistically, this fight, Beterbiev power, Bivol technical, but for the most part, it's just a fairly technical fight all around. I mean, I think Bivol does a really good job of minimizing Beterbiev's power, and again, I'd be surprised if Beterbiev got a knockout here. So, if there's anything we can take from that fight into this fight, I think Dimitri Bivol is a smarter fighter, and I think he's going to learn more from watching that fight back over and over. And I also think he'll just take a lot in confidence and in understanding how many rounds he needs to win. Because Dimitri Bivol is not going in there and saying, okay, we're going to go knock this guy out. He's saying, okay, I have to win enough rounds. And, at the end of the day, he gave one too many rounds away in that 4 through 7 stretch. And so I think he's smart enough to now understand which rounds he has to win. And at the end of the day, could come down to stamina. It literally could come down to stamina, because it's going to come down to rounds, and it's probably going to come down to rounds 10, 11, and 12. It's going to come down to these championship rounds. And who's got more energy, right? Who's got more energy? I think it's going to be Dimitri Bivol. And I think Dimitri Bivol will get this victory. And we'll hold off Callum Smith. We'll hold off David Benavidez. And we'll see this fight a third time. Probably as soon as this summer. Again, for boxing, that's the best outcome. I don't care if you're a massive Artur Beterbiev fan. For boxing, the best outcome is Dimitri Bivol winning this fight. Let's go to the co-main event. Again, there's a reason we're calling this the greatest boxing card of all time. Co-main event, Daniel Dubois, minus 285 against Joseph Parker. Now, this is an interesting one because for Daniel Dubois and for Joseph Parker was... So we've always had this Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury, right? We've had that tier in the heavyweight area, this last, 5-6 years? And I guess you could fit Wilder in there, not anymore. He's in a tier much lower now, but we've had that tier. That tier's gone. It's Usyk now. And so the question is, who from that tier below is going to come up and challenge Usyk? It looked like it was going to be Joseph Parker for the longest time, and let me explain why. He had these, so he lost to Joe Joyce, and then he beat Jack Massey, Opelu, Simon Keane, and then he beat Deontay Wilder, which was crazy at the time. Let's remember that. And then he beat Zhilei Zhang. Another impressive win. Okay? That's Joseph Parker. So now, 2 impressive wins strung together. And for Daniel Dubois, he was doing his thing. Obviously, his lone career losses to Joe Joyce and Usyk. Nothing wrong with that at all. But, again, when you lose to Usyk, it seemed like Parker was going to get there quicker. And then he beat Anthony Joshua. And that changes a lot of things. And so now we have Daniel Dubois, who's minus 285. And it wasn't just beating Joshua. He sat him down time and time again and then knocked him out and had one of the best knockouts of the year. So you remember that kind of stuff. And that's enough to jump him ahead in the odds in this fight and enough to jump him ahead in who's going to get Usyk next. But the fact of the matter is the winner of this fight gets Alexander Usyk next. I'm not sure if Usyk's there. I'm guessing he will be. But we're talking about a guy in Usyk who's telling us he doesn't have many fights left. Every fight's really important. And so I talked about what's best for boxing is Bivol to win. In this fight, what's best for boxing is domination in this fight. A quick, early, massive knockout or a dominant decision win. We need one of these guys. We need to be so confident after this fight that one of these guys can go beat Usyk. If it's a really close fight, just a slugfest, we're not going to be that confident that one of those guys can beat Usyk, right? If you can barely beat Joseph Parker or if you can barely beat Daniel Dubois, how are you going to beat Alexander Usyk? What we need is domination. I think most people are thinking that domination will probably come from Daniel Dubois if we get it. He's 22-2, 21 knockouts. He got that big victory over Anthony Joshua. Again, for Parker, 33 years old now. And obviously the big wins lately over Deontay Wilder and Zhilei Zhang. Now the argument is, well, we've seen Zhang lately, not great. We've seen Wilder lately, not great. So are those wins actually what they seem to be? I think we're going to find out on Saturday. Again, Dubois, massive power, extremely aggressive. That's what we saw in the Joshua fight. Early knockdowns, extremely aggressive, moves forward. It's the same thing Joseph Parker did against Deontay Wilder. Moving forward, extremely aggressive. So I think we're going to get a knockout in this fight. I do. And I think it's going to come from Daniel Dubois. And I think we're going to be really excited, and I think Daniel Dubois is going to call out Usyk, or going to get that big fight, and I think it's going to be a good fight. But, again, I'm not counting out Joseph Parker. I just look at what Zhang Zhang has looked like, what Deontay Wilder has looked like, and I'll take my win over Anthony Joshua any day with Daniel Dubois. So an exciting co-main event, and again, obviously, you've got Alexander Usyk sitting there waiting, and this is his next fight. So massive stuff, to say the least. Okay, let's go down. Shakur Stevenson. At this time, they haven't updated yet. He was minus 1,250, and Floyd Schofield was plus 700. Since yesterday, Floyd Schofield has backed out of the fight with an illness. If you're unfamiliar with Floyd Schofield, young star, 18-0, was going to be extremely aggressive, powerful, a lot of trash talk in this fight. Shakur Stevenson was on Andre Ward's podcast. It was uploaded yesterday before he pulled out, and Shakur Stevenson said, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls out. He pulled out. So, I don't know what's happening. We're going to find out a lot more, I guess, when they get back to the U.S., but keep an eye on that storyline. I don't think we've seen the last of that. What we have seen is a replacement. So we do have a replacement fight as of early this morning. And Shakur Stevenson, he does have a fight now again. Massive favorite. And just continues to be the most ducked guy in boxing. Don't take my word for it. I'm a Shakur Stevenson fan. Don't take my word for it, but just go look. He's continued time and time again to be ducked. He's also just had bad luck. This could be an illness. I understand it. He had the hand injury in the Joe Cordino fight. I understand it. But it's pretty unlucky. It's pretty unlucky. And listen, the last couple fights have been boring. Completely understand. I'll put my hand up and say I understand. The one that was 2 fights ago was a hand. The last one, kind of frustrating. I will not say, even though I have every right to, I will not say if Shakur Stevenson doesn't look great in this fight, he's going to win the fight. If he doesn't look great, though, I won't say it's because of a late replacement. Although, we've seen that, right? Guys struggle. It's not just the late replacement guys that have something to worry about. It's the guys who have been training for someone completely different and have to, adjust their game plan. I won't make that argument. Shakur Stevenson has to go out there and put on a show. And if he doesn't, I will be frustrated. And I will say it's his fault. I'm not going to say he's a boring fighter. I don't find him boring, even in those fights. But then he just has to be okay with, never headlining one of these events. Because that's what's out there for him. Gervonta Davis is out there for him. Vasily Lomachenko is out there for him. But if he puts on another dud, if he isn't the aggressor, and if he doesn't go around and expect to get hit a little bit, even though that's kind of his thing is not getting hit, he might have to go get hit a little bit to really go get a finish. What I'm looking for in this fight from him is his ability to cut off the ring. That's been the biggest thing I've been frustrated with, is he has landed punches. He's been way better in the pocket in these exchanges, and he's had the opportunity to land big punches, but then he hasn't cut off the ring after the big punch. And so that's the big thing to look in this fight, in my opinion, is can he cut off the ring and get a finish in the corner of the ring? That's my question. Bivol, he's really good at it. Beterbiev, really good at it. Listen, Bivol, not a knockout guy. You watch all his finishes, it's because he cuts off the ring and then lands a ton of punches. That's what Shakur Stevenson has to do. He's not going to one punch knock you out. I'm taking Shakur Stevenson. I'm taking him by knockout in the 7th round. I think he does it, but I think he's got a lot of room to grow. I'll talk about it after the fight, but I'll just quick point out. I think he should call out Loma. I think he should call out everybody else as good as Loma. He's not going to call out Keyshawn Davis, I don't think. Maybe he will. I don't know. But don't call out Tank yet. Don't call out Tank yet. You're not ready. You are not ready. I think he could beat Tank today. I think if they fought right now, I think he would beat Tank. But I think he's going to get a lot better yet. And I don't know if Tank's going to get a lot better. I think Tank is really darn good, and I think he's at his peak. I don't see Tank getting any better. I think everything he does really well. That's not the case for Shakur. He's got to wait. I'm not saying wait forever. I understand Tank's prime is every single day that passes, his prime is going away. But if you're Shakur, you got to wait. I would not call him out. I'd call out Loma. I think that's the easiest one. I think he gets it done. And I think it just teaches him a lot more about where he's at. If he does well with Loma, then go ahead and call out Tank. But Loma's that stepping stone. Going down the card more. Carlos Adames, plus 220 against Hamza Shiraz, who's minus 280. Virgil Ortiz, minus 130 against Israel Madrimov. Last time we saw Israel Madrimov, he fought a really good fight against Terence Crawford. And so I think this is going to be the second best fight on the card, behind Bivol Beterbiev. Certainly the most underrated fight on the card. Madrimov looks so good. And so for Virgil Ortiz, this undefeated prospect who's got a few holes in his game, we're going to find out a lot about him. And I don't know if that's good for him. I hope it is. But we're going to find out a lot. He's 22-0 with 21 knockouts. And listen, it's perfect. The star in this division just beat Madrimov, but not by a ton. If you can go and put a more impressive performance against Madrimov, I can't imagine being in a better spot. I mean, that's how you set yourself up for success. Now you get to call out Boots Ennis and Terence Crawford. Now you get to call out Errol Spence and Sebastian Fundora. Because you get to say, I just dominated the guy that Terence Crawford couldn't finish. And couldn't even beat handily. So, again, there's holes in Ortiz's game. We've seen that. But this is about as big of an opportunity as you're going to find. And a great one. And this is huge. Again, for Israel Madrimov, he's a good fighter. He's 10-1-1. And he's a really good defensive fighter. He's quick. We saw that against Crawford. And so you have two interesting styles here. You've got Ortiz's aggressive style and Madrimov, who's much more technical. So he's going to push Ortiz. Listen. This is a really good fight. Do not miss this fight. I think if you miss any of the other undercard fights, I understand. Do not miss this fight. This is going to be a fantastic fight. Again, Virgil Ortiz Jr. is minus 130 with Madrimov plus 100. Big time implications of this fight. Zhilei Zhang and Agit Caballo. Zhilei Zhang is plus 145. Caballo minus 175. Zhilei Zhang, we've seen it. He's clearly older. He's clearly not the same, but he's so clearly dangerous. And I think he's going to win this fight. By the way, I'm picking Virgil Ortiz in the last fight. And I think Zhilei Zhang is going to win this fight. He just has this incredible power at the age that he has. And when guys get a little too aggressive, he's able to put you down to the floor. He's getting older. He's probably going to look even slower than the last time we saw him. His career is going to be over very, very soon. But I think he's got one more moment in him, and I think it's this fight. I cannot wait to see it. And then you've got the Callum Smith fight, where you've got Joshua Buatsi, who's minus 185, and Callum Smith, who is plus 155. So, this fight is massive implications, especially on this card. We talk about this. In boxing, in combat sports, I should say, we have a lot of recency bias. And we tend to give chances to fighters who have fought more recently. This could really help out Callum Smith. If he puts an impressive performance on, by the way, it could help out Joshua Buatsi too. For either guy, they get the victory, they get to call out Bivol or Beterbiev as well. And when stuff like that happens on the same night, we remember that stuff. You have a huge opportunity to make a chance for yourself again. This is another one, just like Parker and Dubois. As boxing fans, we need dominance. We can't get a close fight here. We need dominance so that we're so confident that one of these guys can go hang with Bivol or Beterbiev. Again, Callum Smith, 30-2, 22 knockouts. And Joshua Buatsi, he's 31 years old. He's 19-0 with 13 KOs. Okay, he's undefeated. When you look at the breakdown, Smith is much more known for his powerful punches, technical boxing skills, and Buatsi, speed, agility. He's a quick light heavyweight. Listen, this is gonna be a great fight as well, and I believe this is getting the main card started. So I think this will take place at like 11:30 or something like that. I'm taking Joshua Buatsi. I think he gets it. I think the underdog, I think the favorite, in this fight. I think people consider Callum Smith the favorite in this fight. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think Buatsi, the young star, gets it. I think he's impressive. And hopefully he's able to get on the mic and, tug some strings and hopefully get his name out there. But there you go. I'm picking Bivol, I'm picking Dubois, I'm picking Shakur, I'm picking Virgil Ortiz Jr., Zhilei Zhang, and Joshua Buatsi. So, there we go. The greatest card of all time, taking place this Saturday. I cannot wait. And here's the biggest thing. Not the biggest thing. One of the biggest storylines that is not being talked about much, but should be talked about much more. $30 for the pay-per-view. This pay-per-view right here could change the sport forever. Boxing and UFC. UFC has that TV deal coming up, and that's going to be a big talking point as well. We've always seen the $70, $80 pay-per-views. Turkey's doing one for $30. The streaming of these events, the free streaming, has not been going well lately. They're starting to crack down a little bit. And so here's what we know. We're going to find out because we're going to be able to tell the pay-per-views. And here's what we'll do. We'll see the pay-per-views from this event, which will be much more. And then take the pay-per-views from a regular $70, $80 event. And then we can compare and ask, does boxing and UFC actually make more money if they make the pay-per-views cheaper? Because if they do that, they're going to do it. If you make them $30, there's a lot more people who are willing to buy that instead of risking streaming. So we're going to find that out. That's a big storyline. I cannot wait to unpack that. That's one of my favorite things to look at. It's going to be talked about a lot in the UFC and in boxing this next year. And Turkey is doing this for the first time. He's going to give us this opportunity to see how many more pay-per-view buys does this thing do. It would have to be over double to match up. It'll be interesting. We'll see the numbers. I can't wait to see those numbers. And do a little math and see, okay, how much are we losing any money for making them cheaper? We'll find out. But I can't wait for this fight. I'll have a recap after. Talk about the fights. A lot of implications. More implications for the future. I mean, you look at all of these fights. You get Virgil Ortiz Jr., who has a crazy chance to make a statement. Dubois or Parker, crazy chance to go fight Usyk. All these guys, crazy chances in these fights to go get themselves even bigger fights, which will probably be taking place on a future Saudi Arabian card that we'll be calling the greatest card ever because they're only going to get greater from here. But for now, I'm Austin Olman. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Fight Talk.